The explosion shattered the quiet morning like thunder breaking through peaceful dreams. Marcus Thompson felt the ground shake beneath his boots as he rushed toward the smoke rising from the marketplace. His medical bag bounced against his hip with each hurried step. As a Navy SEAL medic, he had seen countless emergencies, but something about this felt different. The scene that greeted him was chaos. Vendors scattered in all directions, their colorful fruits and vegetables now mixed with debris and dust. People were screaming, some running away while others stood frozen in shock. Marcus quickly scanned the area with trained eyes, looking for the most seriously injured. That's when he saw her. A woman sat against a crumbling wall, her back straight despite the blood seeping through her torn jacket. She wasn't crying or calling for help like the others. Instead, she was calmly applying pressure to a wound on her arm while keeping watch over the area around her. Her dark hair had come loose from its ponytail, framing a face that showed pain but no panic. Marcus approached her carefully. "Ma'am, I'm a medic. Let me help you." She looked up at him with intelligent green eyes that seemed to take in everything about him in a single glance. "Thank you, but please help the others first. My injuries aren't life-threatening." Her voice was steady, almost professional. Marcus noticed she spoke with a slight accent he couldn't quite place. Most civilians in shock would be babbling or demanding immediate attention, but this woman seemed to be thinking clearly despite her obvious pain. "I'll determine that," Marcus said gently, kneeling beside her. "What's your name?" "Elena," she replied simply. As Marcus began examining her wounds, he noticed several things that didn't add up. Her injuries, while real, seemed to have been treated with basic field medicine techniques. The way she had positioned herself gave her a clear view of all entrances to the marketplace. Most telling of all, her breathing was controlled and measured, the way someone trained in combat might breathe to manage pain and stay alert. "You did a good job with this," Marcus said, looking at how she had bandaged her arm. "Do you have medical training?" Elena hesitated for just a moment. "A little first aid, nothing special." But Marcus had taught first aid to enough people to know the difference between basic training and professional skill. The way she had tied the bandage, the angle of the pressure point she was maintaining, even how she positioned her body to protect the wound while staying mobile. These weren't things you learned in a weekend Red Cross class. "This is going to sting," he warned as he cleaned the wound on her shoulder. Elena didn't flinch. She didn't even change her breathing pattern. Marcus had treated tough guys who couldn't handle having a splinter removed without making noise, but Elena sat there like she was getting her hair brushed. "Are you from around here?" Marcus asked, trying to get more information. "I travel for work," she answered vaguely. Marcus noticed her clothes were practical and well-made, the kind that would hold up under stress. Her boots were broken in but not worn out, suggesting someone who did a lot of walking but could afford to replace gear when needed. Her jacket had hidden pockets. He could see the slight bulges that suggested she carried more than just a wallet and keys. As he worked on her injuries, other medics arrived and began helping the remaining wounded. Marcus found himself oddly reluctant to leave Elena's side. There was something about her that he couldn't shake. She reminded him of people he had worked with in special operations, calm under pressure, observant, and careful about sharing information. "You're lucky," he said as he finished wrapping her shoulder. "A few inches lower and this could have been much worse." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Elena replied quietly. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, a local police officer approached them. "Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about what happened." Elena's entire demeanor shifted slightly. It was subtle, but Marcus caught it. Her shoulders tensed just a fraction and her eyes quickly surveyed the area again. It was the same kind of automatic threat assessment he did in potentially dangerous situations. "Of course," Elena said to the officer, "though I'm afraid I didn't see much. I was looking at fruit when the explosion happened." As she spoke to the police officer, Marcus noticed she answered questions directly, but didn't volunteer any extra information. Her responses were truthful but carefully minimal. She gave her name as Elena Rodriguez and said she was a tourist visiting the area, but Marcus watched her eyes. While she spoke to the officer, she was unconsciously cataloging escape routes and keeping track of everyone who approached their location. This wasn't normal tourist behavior. This was the behavior of someone trained in personal security. When the officer finished his questions and moved on, Elena turned back to Marcus. "Thank you for your help. You probably saved my life. Just doing my job, Marcus replied. Are you sure you're okay? You should probably go to the hospital for a more thorough examination. I'll be fine, Elena assured him. I heal quickly. As she stood to leave, Marcus noticed she moved with careful grace, favoring her injured side but not limping. She was managing her pain well, better than most people could without proper training. Elena, Marcus called as she started to walk away. She turned back, and for a moment, her guard seemed to drop slightly. In that instant, Marcus saw something in her eyes that he recognized from his own mirror. The weight of secrets, the constant awareness that came from living a life where trust was earned slowly and danger was always possible. Be careful out there, he said simply. She smiled, and it was the first completely genuine expression he had seen from her. You too, Marcus. As she disappeared into the crowd, Marcus realized she had never asked for his name, yet she had known it. Most people would have asked. The fact that she hadn't suggested she had been listening more carefully to his radio communications with other medics than she had let on. Marcus packed up his medical supplies slowly, his mind working through everything he had observed. Elena was definitely not an ordinary civilian tourist. But if she wasn't what she claimed to be, what was she? And why had she been at that marketplace at exactly the moment when an explosion occurred? One thing was certain, their paths would cross again. In his line of work, Marcus had learned to trust his instincts, and every instinct he had was telling him that Elena Rodriguez was much more than she appeared to be. 3 days after the marketplace explosion, Marcus found himself thinking about Elena more than he should have. He was off duty, sitting in a small cafe near the base when she walked in. The coincidence seemed too perfect to be accidental. Elena spotted him immediately and approached his table with the same controlled movements he remembered. She was dressed differently now, dark jeans and a simple blue sweater, but she still carried herself like someone ready for anything. Mind if I sit? She asked. Marcus gestured to the empty chair across from him. Small world. Smaller than you might think, Elena replied, settling into her seat. She winced slightly as she moved her injured arm, the only sign that she was still healing. How are you feeling? Marcus asked. Better. Your work was excellent. She paused, studying his face. You've been thinking about our meeting. It wasn't a question. Marcus realized she was reading him as carefully as he was trying to read her. Professional curiosity, he admitted. Elena smiled. I understand professional curiosity. I have the same problem. What kind of work did you say you do? Marcus asked. I didn't say. Elena signaled the waitress for coffee. But since we seem to keep running into each other, perhaps we should be honest with each other. I'm always honest, Marcus replied, so am I. Within the limits of what I can share. Elena's coffee arrived, and she wrapped her hands around the warm cup. You're Navy SEAL medical specialist. You've been deployed overseas multiple times. You're very good at reading people, which is probably what's making you suspicious about me. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You've done your homework. It's what I do. Elena took a sip of her coffee. And now you're wondering if our meeting at the marketplace was really a coincidence. Was it? Elena considered this for a moment. Yes and no. I was there for work, but I wasn't expecting an explosion any more than you were. What kind of work? The kind that requires me to be very careful about who I trust. Elena's green eyes met his directly. The kind that sometimes puts me in dangerous places at dangerous times. Marcus felt a chill of recognition. He knew that kind of work. He had done that kind of work. Intelligence? Elena didn't answer directly, but her slight nod told him everything he needed to know. Government? He pressed. Does it matter which government? Elena asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them. Marcus realized she was giving him information in a way that allowed both of them to maintain plausible deniability. If she worked for a foreign intelligence service, this conversation could be crossing lines he shouldn't cross. But something about her felt trustworthy, despite all the reasons he should be cautious. The explosion, Marcus said. Were you tracking whoever was responsible? I was tracking someone. Whether they were responsible, Elena shrugged. That's still being determined. By you? By people who make those kinds of determinations. Marcus appreciated how she was handling this conversation. She was being truthful without revealing operational details. It was exactly how he would handle it if their positions were reversed. The person you were tracking, Marcus said. Are they still a threat? Elena's expression became more serious. There are always threats, Marcus. Some are immediate, some are potential. Some we know about, others surprise us. Like marketplace explosions? Like marketplace explosions. The conversation was interrupted when Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. As he glanced at it, Elena smoothly leaned forward and he realized she was reading it upside down. The skill required to read inverted text quickly wasn't something most people possessed. Emergency? She asked. Just a schedule change, Marcus replied, watching her carefully. You read upside down pretty well. Elena didn't look embarrassed at being caught. Useful skill in my line of work. Along with field medicine and threat assessment. Along with a lot of things. Elena finished her coffee. Marcus, can I ask you something? Go ahead. In your experience, what do you do when you meet someone you think you can trust, but trusting them could compromise your mission? It was a loaded question, and Marcus knew she was talking about their current situation. Depends on whether trusting them might actually help the mission. And if you can't be sure, then you test the waters carefully. Share small pieces of information and see what happens. Elena nodded slowly. That's wise advice. Is that what this is? Testing the waters? Maybe. Elena stood up, moving carefully to protect her injured shoulder. Or maybe I just wanted to thank you properly for helping me. Elena, Marcus said as she prepared to leave. If you're working something in this area and if there's a chance it could affect civilian safety, you want to be kept in the loop? I want to help if I can. Elena studied his face for a long moment. Why? Because that's what I do. I help people, even when helping might be dangerous. Especially then. Elena seemed to reach a decision. There's a restaurant called La Paloma 3 blocks from here. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. If you're interested in continuing this conversation, will you be there? Marcus asked. If I'm not, it means something has gone wrong. The implication was clear. Elena was working something active, something that involved enough risk that she might not be free to meet him. What should I do if you don't show? Elena paused at his table. Trust your instincts, Marcus. You have good ones. As she walked away, Marcus noticed she took a route that allowed her to observe the street in both directions before disappearing around a corner. Professional habits were hard to break, especially when your life might depend on them. Marcus finished his own coffee slowly, thinking through everything Elena had told him and everything she hadn't. She was definitely intelligence, probably foreign, based on her earlier comment about which government mattering, but she didn't feel like a threat. If anything, she felt like someone who was trying to prevent threats. The marketplace explosion was connected to her work somehow. She had been tracking someone, and either that person was responsible for the explosion or the explosion had complicated her operation. Either way, she was still working the case, and now she was deciding whether to trust him with more information. Marcus realized he had already made his own decision. Tomorrow night he would be at La Paloma at 7 o'clock. Whatever Elena was working on, whatever danger she was facing, he wanted to help. But first, he needed to do some research of his own. If Elena could investigate him, he could return the favor. He had contacts in intelligence circles, people who owed him favors from various operations. It was time to call in some of those debts and find out exactly who Elena Rodriguez really was. Because despite his growing trust in her, Marcus hadn't survived multiple deployments by taking people at face value. Even people he was beginning to care about. Marcus spent the day making discreet inquiries about Elena Rodriguez. His contacts in military intelligence were helpful but careful, the way people always were when discussing operations that might still be classified. What he learned was both reassuring and concerning. Elena was real and she was exactly what he had suspected, a highly trained intelligence operative. But her background was more complex than he had imagined. According to his source at CIA, Elena had been born in Colombia, but raised in the United States after her family fled violence when she was 8 years old. She had joined the Army at 18, excelled in military intelligence, and been recruited by the CIA 5 years later. Her specialty was counterterrorism, specifically tracking international networks that moved money, weapons, and people across borders. But here was the interesting part. She had gone off the books 3 months ago. Not gone rogue, but transferred to a joint task force so classified that even his CIA contact didn't know exactly what they did. All he knew was that they handled cases too sensitive for traditional channels. Marcus arrived at La Paloma 15 minutes early, and chose a table with a clear view of the entrance and at least 2 exit routes. Old habits were useful even in civilian settings. Elena arrived precisely at 7, scanning the restaurant quickly before approaching his table. She moved with less caution than before, suggesting she had checked the area for threats before entering. "You came," she said, sitting across from him. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might have second thoughts after doing your research." Elena's smile was knowing. "Yes, I assumed you would check up on me. I would have done the same thing. And what did you assume I would find? That I'm exactly what I appear to be, but also more complicated than you expected." Marcus ordered wine for both of them before responding. "CIA, military intelligence background, currently working for a task force that doesn't officially exist. Colombian-born family background that explains why you chose counterterrorism." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You have good contacts. So do you, apparently. You knew things about my deployment history that aren't in public records." "Guilty as charged." Elena raised her wineglass, to mutual professional curiosity. They drank, and Marcus felt some of the tension between them ease. They were both intelligence professionals who had investigated each other and found no immediate threats. It was an odd basis for trust, but it worked. "The marketplace explosion," Marcus said. "What can you tell me?" Elena looked around the restaurant carefully before responding. "We've been tracking a network that specializes in moving high-value targets across international borders. Not refugees or immigrants, people who are valuable to terrorist organizations, criminal enterprises, or hostile governments. Like smuggling scientists or weapons experts. Among other things, the network operates across multiple countries and has connections to several organizations we're very interested in." "And someone from this network was at the marketplace?" "We had intelligence suggesting a meeting was scheduled there. I was conducting surveillance when the explosion occurred." Marcus understood. "You think the explosion was meant to eliminate your target before you could capture him? Or to eliminate me before I could complete my surveillance?" Elena's expression was grim. "I'm still not sure which. Could it have been both? That's what we're trying to determine." The waiter brought their food and they ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Marcus found himself appreciating Elena's directness. She was sharing operational information with him, which meant she had decided to trust him. In their line of work, that kind of trust wasn't given lightly. "Who else knows about your investigation?" Marcus asked. "My handler, obviously. A few analysts back home. The local police think I'm just a tourist who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. But someone knew enough to target either you or your subject with an explosion." "Yes," Elena set down her fork. "Which means we have a leak somewhere, or we're dealing with someone much more sophisticated than we initially thought." Marcus considered the implications. "If they knew about your surveillance, they might know about this meeting too. I've been careful, but yes, it's a risk, then why take it? Why involve me?" Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "Because the network we're tracking has medical connections. They don't just move people. They provide medical support for high-value targets who are injured or sick. Safe houses with surgical facilities, doctors who don't ask questions, medical supplies that can't be traced. And you think they might need a medic? I think they might try to recruit one." Elena met his eyes directly. Someone with military training, security clearance, and a reputation for keeping secrets. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. "They want to recruit me. It's possible. The explosion might not have been targeting my subject or me. It might have been creating a situation where they could observe you working under pressure." The idea that he had been under surveillance without knowing it was unsettling. Marcus prided himself on his situational awareness. But if Elena was right, someone had been watching him carefully enough to plan an operation around him. "What kind of evidence do you have for this theory?" he asked. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a small tablet. She showed him a series of photographs taken with a telephoto lens. They showed him treating injured people at the marketplace. But the angle and quality suggested they had been taken by someone with professional equipment and training. "We found these on a camera in a building overlooking the marketplace," Elena explained. The camera was placed specifically to photograph the medical response to the explosion. Marcus studied the images. Several of them focused specifically on his hands as he worked, showing his techniques and capabilities. Others captured his face clearly, obviously for identification purposes. They were definitely watching me, he agreed. The question is what they plan to do with the information they gathered. Have there been other recruitment attempts? Other medics targeted? 3 in the past 6 months. 2 said no and were left alone. 1 said yes and disappeared. Marcus understood the implications. And you want to use me as bait to draw them out. I want to offer you the chance to help us stop them. Elena's voice was serious. But only if you understand the risks. If they do approach you, saying no might not be enough anymore. They're becoming more aggressive in their recruitment methods. And saying yes means going undercover with a terrorist support network. Saying yes means helping us identify and capture a network that has facilitated attacks in 4 countries over the past 2 years. Marcus considered everything Elena had told him. The operation was dangerous, but it was also exactly the kind of work he had trained for. Using his medical skills to help capture terrorists was something he could believe in. What would you need from me? He asked. For now, just continue your normal routine. If they approach you, act interested but cautious. Don't be too eager. That would make them suspicious. And keep you informed of any contact. Yes, but Marcus. Elena reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. If at any point this feels too dangerous, just walk away. I'll understand. Will you? I'll be disappointed, but I'll understand. Not everyone is cut out for this kind of work. Marcus smiled. I think you know I am. Elena smiled back. I was hoping you'd say that. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Marcus realized he was committed now. Whatever happened next, he was part of Elena's operation. The thought should have worried him, but instead he felt energized. For the first time since returning from his last deployment, he felt like he was doing something that mattered. The approach came exactly 1 week later, just as Elena had predicted. Marcus was finishing his shift at the base medical facility when a man in an expensive suit approached him in the parking lot. Dr. Thompson? The man spoke with a slight accent that Marcus couldn't immediately place. My name is Ahmed Hassan. I represent a private medical organization that provides emergency care in conflict zones. Marcus had been expecting this, but his heart rate still increased. I'm sorry, I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm not a doctor. Forgive me, Hassan said smoothly. Medic Thompson, then. Your reputation for working under pressure is quite impressive. I'm not sure what you mean, Hassan smiled. The marketplace incident last week. You saved several lives while working with minimal equipment in a chaotic environment. That kind of skill is exactly what our organization needs. Marcus played his role carefully, showing interest but not eagerness. What kind of organization are you talking about? We provide medical support to areas where traditional aid organizations cannot operate safely. Dangerous regions, conflict zones, areas where governments cannot guarantee security for foreign medical personnel. Sounds risky. It is, but it's also very well compensated. Hassan handed Marcus a business card. Our medics earn more in 6 months than most military medics earn in 5 years. Marcus studied the card. It looked legitimate, with professional printing and contact information for something called the International Emergency Medical Alliance. But Elena had warned him that these recruitment operations always had convincing cover stories. Why me? Marcus asked. Your military background means you can handle dangerous situations. Your medical training means you can save lives. Your security clearance means you can be trusted with sensitive information. The mention of his security clearance was a red flag. Legitimate medical organizations wouldn't know about classified aspects of his background, and they certainly wouldn't consider it relevant to emergency medical work. I'd need to know more before making any kind of commitment, Marcus said. Of course, there's a coffee shop on 5th Street called Cafe Luna. Would you be available to meet there tomorrow evening?
Say 8 o'clock?
Marcus pretended to consider this. I suppose I could hear what you have to offer. Excellent. Ask for Dr. Ramirez when you arrive. She'll explain everything. Hassan walked away, leaving Marcus with the business card and a dozen questions. He waited until Hassan's car had disappeared before pulling out his phone to text Elena. Contact made. Meeting scheduled tomorrow night at Cafe Luna, 8 p.m. Elena's response came within minutes. Good, we'll be watching. Remember, interested but cautious. Marcus spent the next day researching the International Emergency Medical Alliance. On the surface, it appeared to be a legitimate organization with a website, published reports, and even a few news articles about their work in disaster zones. But when he dug deeper, using techniques Elena had taught him, he found inconsistencies. The organization's funding sources were vague. Their published locations didn't match their claimed areas of operation. Most telling of all, several of the doctors listed on their website didn't exist. Their credentials led to universities that had no record of graduating anyone by those names. Café Luna was busy when Marcus arrived, which he realized was probably intentional. Crowds provided cover for surveillance and made recording conversations more difficult. He asked for Dr. Ramirez and was led to a corner table where a middle-aged woman with graying hair was waiting. "Marcus," she said, standing to shake his hand. "Thank you for coming. I'm Dr. Sofia Ramirez." Unlike Hassan's expensively dressed formality, Dr. Ramirez looked exactly like what she claimed to be, a field doctor with practical clothes and the kind of weathered appearance that came from working in difficult conditions. "Ahmed told me you might be interested in our work," she continued as they sat down. "I'm curious," Marcus replied, "but I have to admit, I've never heard of your organization. We keep a low profile for security reasons. Much of our work is in areas where being associated with Western medical organizations could make our people targets." "What kind of areas?" "Regions where there's ongoing conflict but no clear government authority to request international aid. Border areas where refugees gather, but official aid organizations can't operate. Places where people are dying, but politics prevents traditional help from reaching them." Dr. Ramirez's description sounded noble, and Marcus found himself almost believing it. She spoke with the passion of someone who genuinely cared about helping people in desperate situations. "How do you get access to these areas?" Marcus asked. "We work through local contacts, people who understand the political situation and can guarantee safe passage for our teams." "Local contacts like who?" "It varies by region. Sometimes tribal leaders, sometimes business contacts who have relationships across political lines. Occasionally we work with groups that the international community doesn't officially recognize but who control territory where people need help." There it was, the admission that they worked with groups the international community didn't recognize. That was diplomatic language for terrorist organizations and criminal networks. "Sounds complicated," Marcus said. "It is. But Marcus, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I can tell you that some of the most rewarding work I've ever done has been in places where no one else would go." Dr. Ramirez pulled out a tablet and showed him photographs of what appeared to be field medical operations. Marcus saw makeshift surgical facilities, medical supplies being unloaded from trucks, and people who looked genuinely grateful for help. "These were taken during our operation in Syria last year," Dr. Ramirez explained. "We provided medical care to a refugee camp that no official aid organization could reach because of security concerns." "How did you get access when other organizations couldn't?" "Our local contacts had relationships with all the groups controlling the area. They guaranteed our safety in exchange for treating their people as well as the refugees." Marcus understood what she wasn't saying directly. They had gained access by agreeing to provide medical care to combatants from various factions, not just civilians. "What would my role be in something like this?" he asked. "Field medic primarily. You'd be part of a small team that goes into these areas for short-term operations, usually 2 to 3 weeks at a time." "And the compensation Ahmed mentioned?" $50,000 per operation, plus expenses and medical insurance. The amount was staggering, more than Marcus made in a year of military service. But he also understood that the high pay was compensation for high risk. "I'd need to think about this," Marcus said. "Of course. But Marcus, I should mention that we're planning an operation next month that would be perfect for someone with your background. If you're interested, we'd need to know soon so we can arrange the necessary paperwork and briefings." "What kind of operation?" "Medical support for a humanitarian mission in Somalia. There's a region where fighting between government forces and local militias has left thousands of people without medical care. Our local contacts have negotiated safe passage for a medical team." "How many people on the team?" 4. "A surgeon, an anesthesiologist, a nurse, and a field medic." "You'd be the medic." Marcus realized this was the recruitment pitch Elena had warned him about. They were offering him a specific operation with a clear timeline, trying to pressure him into making a quick decision. "I'd need more details before committing to anything," he said. "Absolutely. Why don't we schedule another meeting for next week? I can show you detailed operational plans and answer any questions you might have." That sounds reasonable. Dr. Ramirez stood up. Marcus, I hope you'll seriously consider this opportunity. You have exactly the skills we need, and I think you'd find the work very fulfilling. As she walked away, Marcus noticed she didn't head toward the exit. Instead, she went to the restroom, which gave her an opportunity to observe whether he made any phone calls or contacted anyone immediately after their meeting. Marcus waited 5 minutes before leaving the cafe. He drove home using a route that allowed him to check for surveillance, then waited another hour before texting Elena. Meeting complete. They're planning something in Somalia next month. Need to discuss details. Elena's response was immediate. My place 1 hour. Make sure you're not followed. As Marcus drove to Elena's apartment, he reflected on how convincing Dr. Ramirez had been. If he didn't know better, he might have believed that the International Emergency Medical Alliance was exactly what they claimed to be. But Elena had taught him to look for the details that didn't add up, and there were plenty of those. The question now was whether they could use his apparent recruitment to identify and capture the network Elena was hunting. Because one thing was clear, whatever operation they were planning in Somalia, it wasn't about providing humanitarian medical care to refugees. Elena's apartment was exactly what Marcus had expected from someone in her profession, minimally furnished, strategically located with multiple exit routes, and equipped with technology that definitely wasn't available at the local electronics store. They moved faster than I anticipated, Elena said, as she reviewed Marcus's account of the meeting. Offering you a specific operation right away means they're under pressure to recruit someone quickly. Or they're testing my commitment level, Marcus suggested. Both, probably. Elena pulled up a map of Somalia on her laptop. The region they mentioned is controlled by al-Shabaab militants. No legitimate medical organization would operate there without significant security guarantees that al-Shabaab has never given to Western organizations. So they're definitely working with the militants. Working for them, more likely. Al-Shabaab has been recruiting foreign medical personnel to treat their fighters and train local recruits in field medicine. Marcus studied the map. What kind of operation do you think they're really planning? Best case scenario, they want you to train militants in combat medicine. Worst case, they're planning an attack and need a medic on standby to treat casualties among their own people. Either way, I'd be directly supporting terrorism. Yes, which is why we need to be very careful about how we handle your next meeting with Dr. Ramirez. Elena opened a secure communication channel on her laptop and typed rapidly. Within minutes, she was connected to what appeared to be a joint intelligence center with multiple agencies represented. This is Agent Rodriguez, Elena said into her headset. I'm here with our asset. We need to discuss operational parameters for the Somalia recruitment. Marcus listened as Elena briefed her superiors on the situation. The conversation was conducted in intelligence jargon, but he understood enough to realize that his recruitment was part of a much larger operation targeting the medical support network for multiple terrorist organizations. Understood, Elena said finally. We'll proceed with conditional acceptance and see if we can identify other network members during the briefing process. She ended the call and turned back to Marcus. Here's what we're going to do. At your next meeting, you'll express strong interest in the Somalia operation, but insist on detailed briefings about security procedures and team composition. Ask specific questions about how they guarantee safe passage and what happens if something goes wrong. You want me to act like someone who's interested but professionally cautious? Exactly. Someone with your background would want detailed operational planning before agreeing to go into a hostile area. They'll expect those questions, and answering them will require them to reveal more about their network. What kind of information are you hoping to get? Elena pulled up files on her computer. We want to identify who their local contacts are, how they move personnel across borders, and what other operations they have planned. Most importantly, we want to know if this is connected to an attack we've been tracking intelligence about. What attack? 3 months ago, we intercepted communications suggesting that al-Shabaab was planning something significant against a civilian target. The communications mentioned needing medical support, but we couldn't identify what kind of attack or when it might happen. Marcus felt a chill of understanding. You think my recruitment is connected to this attack? It's possible. The timeline fits, and the urgency of their recruitment suggests they have a specific deadline. So by agreeing to go to Somalia, I might be walking into the middle of a terrorist attack. That's why we need to be very careful about how far we let this go. Elena's expression was serious. Marcus, I need you to understand that if we determine you're being recruited for an imminent attack, we'll have to extract you immediately, even if it compromises the larger investigation. I understand the risks, Marcus said. But Elena, if there's a chance we can prevent an attack by letting this play out, I know. That's what makes this so difficult. Elena closed her laptop. We're walking a very thin line between gathering intelligence and putting you in mortal danger. What does your gut tell you about Dr. Ramirez? Elena considered this. She's a true believer. I think she genuinely believes she's helping people, even if she's working with terrorists to do it. That makes her more dangerous in some ways because she's not motivated by money or coercion. People like that are harder to predict. Exactly. And they're usually more committed to their cause, which means they're less likely to back down if they suspect. We're on to them. Marcus spent the next 3 days preparing for his follow-up meeting with Dr. Ramirez. Elena provided him with detailed questions to ask and specific behaviors to watch for. She also equipped him with a nearly invisible recording device that would capture audio and transmit it to a surveillance team in real time. Remember, Elena briefed him the night before the meeting, your goal is to seem eager enough that they continue trusting you, but cautious enough that they don't suspect you're too good to be true. What if they ask me to commit to something immediately? Tell them you need to arrange leave from your current position and settle some personal affairs. Buy us time to analyze whatever intelligence you gather. The second meeting was scheduled at a different location, a quiet restaurant outside the city where surveillance would be more difficult, but conversation would be more private. Marcus arrived to find Dr. Ramirez waiting with another man she introduced as Colonel Santos. Colonel Santos handles logistics for our operations, Dr. Ramirez explained as they ordered dinner. Santos was younger than Marcus had expected, probably in his early 40s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. His handshake was firm and his eyes never stopped moving around the restaurant. Marcus, Santos said, Dr. Ramirez tells me you're interested in our Somalia operation. I am, but I have questions about security procedures. Of course. What would you like to know? How do you guarantee safe passage through hostile territory? Santos smiled. We work with local guides who have relationships with all the relevant parties. Everyone benefits from our presence. We provide medical care that wouldn't otherwise be available. What happens if fighting breaks out while we're there? Our guides have contingency plans for extraction. But honestly, Marcus, our presence actually tends to reduce conflict. No one wants to be responsible for attacking medical personnel. Dr. Ramirez leaned forward. Marcus, I should mention that this operation is particularly important. We'll be providing care to a community that has been completely cut off from medical support for over 6 months. What kind of medical problems are we talking about? Trauma injuries primarily. The fighting in that region has been intense, and there are many people who need surgical intervention that they can't get anywhere else. Colonel Santos added, we'll also be training local personnel in basic field medicine so they can continue providing care after we leave. Marcus recognized the pattern Elena had described. They were describing the operation in terms that sounded humanitarian while actually referring to treating combatants and training militants. How long would the operation last? Marcus asked. 2 weeks on site plus travel time, Dr. Ramirez replied. We fly into Nairobi, then overland transportation to the operational area. What about equipment and supplies? Everything will be provided, Santos said. Medical supplies, security equipment, communication devices. You just need to bring your personal gear and expertise. Security equipment, body armor mainly, and radios so we can stay in contact with our extraction team. Marcus filed away the mention of an extraction team. Legitimate medical organizations didn't typically plan operations that required armed extraction capabilities. I have to ask about compensation, Marcus said. $50,000 for the 2-week operation, as we discussed, plus a $25,000 bonus if the operation achieves all its objectives. The bonus structure was interesting. It suggested they had specific goals beyond just providing medical care, and those goals were important enough to offer significant additional money. What objectives? Marcus asked. Dr. Ramirez and Colonel Santos exchanged a quick glance. Treating a certain number of patients, training a specific number of local medical personnel, and establishing a sustainable system for ongoing care. Metrics-based medicine, Santos added. Our funding sources want to know we're having measurable impact. That makes sense, Marcus agreed. When would you need a final answer? We're planning to deploy in 3 weeks, Dr. Ramirez said. So we'd need your commitment within the next few days to arrange documentation and briefings. Documentation? Travel papers, medical credentials for operating in Somalia, that sort of thing. Marcus realized they were talking about false documentation. No legitimate medical organization would need to create fake papers for their personnel. I think I'm very interested, Marcus said carefully, but I'd need to arrange leave from my current position and take care of some personal matters. Of course, Dr. Ramirez said. Shall we plan to meet again in 2 days? Same time, same place? That works for me. As they prepared to leave, Colonel Santos handed Marcus a cell phone. This is for secure communication about the operation. Only use it to contact us and don't discuss operational details on any other phone. Marcus accepted the phone, understanding that it was probably monitored by the network and might contain tracking software, but it also represented a direct communication channel that Elena's team could potentially exploit for intelligence gathering. After Santos and Dr. Ramirez left, Marcus waited 20 minutes before leaving the restaurant. He drove home using a surveillance detection route Elena had taught him, then used a secure phone to contact her. They're planning something in 3 weeks, he reported, and they mentioned an extraction team and metrics-based objectives that they're being vague about. Did they give you any communication devices? A cell phone for secure communications. Perfect. Bring it to me tonight. Our technical team can learn a lot from the software they've installed on it. As Marcus drove to meet Elena, he reflected on how deep he was getting into this operation. In 3 days, he would have to give Dr. Ramirez a final answer about going to Somalia. If he said yes, he would be committing to spending 2 weeks embedded with a terrorist support network in one of the most dangerous regions in the world. But if he said no, they might never get another chance to identify and stop whatever attack the network was planning. The weight of that responsibility was something Marcus was used to carrying, but it never got easier. The phone Colonel Santos had given Marcus yielded more intelligence than Elena's technical team had hoped for. Within hours of analysis, they had identified communication patterns that connected the Somalia operation to a larger network spanning 3 continents. This is bigger than we thought, Elena said, as she briefed Marcus on the findings. The phone was communicating with cells in London, Paris, and Jakarta. We're not just looking at medical support for Al-Shabaab. We're looking at a coordinated international operation. Marcus studied the intelligence reports spread across Elena's kitchen table. What kind of operation requires medical coordination across 3 continents? The kind that involves multiple simultaneous attacks. Elena's voice was grim. Our analysts think the Somalia operation isn't about providing medical care at all. It's about extracting someone. Extracting who? We're not sure yet, but the communication pattern suggests someone very important to their organization. Someone who's been injured and needs specialized medical care that they can't get locally. Marcus understood the implications immediately. They want me there to keep someone alive during a high-risk extraction. That's our working theory. The person they're extracting is probably a high-value target who was injured in recent fighting. Someone important enough that multiple terrorist cells are coordinating to get him out of Somalia. And if they succeed in extracting him, then we lose the opportunity to capture or eliminate a major terrorist leader. And that person goes on to plan attacks in other countries. The weight of the situation settled on Marcus's shoulders. This wasn't just about stopping one attack anymore. It was about preventing a key terrorist leader from escaping to plan future operations. There's something else, Elena continued. The technical analysis of the phone revealed that they've been monitoring your movements since our first meeting at the cafe. They know about us? They know you've been meeting with someone regularly. They probably assume it's a girlfriend or family member, but we can't take any chances. Elena showed him photographs taken with telephoto lenses, images of them entering and leaving restaurants, walking together, even sitting in Elena's car. The surveillance had been professional and thorough. How do we handle this? Marcus asked, very carefully. For the next few days, we need to maintain the appearance that our relationship is personal, not professional. If they suspect you're working with intelligence services, they'll either eliminate you as a threat or try to feed you false information. So we keep meeting, but We act like we're dating? It's the most plausible cover story for the amount of time we've been spending together. Marcus realized this added another layer of complexity to an already dangerous situation. Not only was he going undercover with a terrorist network, but he and Elena had to maintain a false romantic relationship under surveillance. "There's one more thing," Elena said. "My superiors want to know if you're willing to go through with the Somalia operation, even knowing it's probably an extraction mission. Especially knowing that, if we can identify who they're trying to extract, we might be able to capture them, or at least gather intelligence about their organization that we couldn't get any other way." Marcus had been expecting this question, but actually hearing it was different. Going to Somalia under these circumstances wasn't just dangerous, it was potentially suicidal. He would be alone with terrorists in hostile territory, with no backup and no way to communicate with Elena's team. What kind of support would I have? Minimal. We can't risk exposing the operation by having an obvious rescue team standing by. You'd have emergency communication capabilities, but extraction would take time. How much time? Best case scenario, 6 hours from when you call for help. Worst case, we might not be able to get to you at all. Marcus absorbed this information. 6 hours was an eternity when you were surrounded by hostile forces who might discover your real identity at any moment. "What does your gut tell you?" Marcus asked Elena. Elena was quiet for a long moment. "My gut tells me this is our best chance to identify a major terrorist leader and prevent future attacks. But it also tells me that sending you into Somalia is asking you to risk your life for intelligence, that we might be able to gather other ways. But those other ways would take time. Yes, and we don't know how much time we have before they successfully extract their target." Marcus made his decision. "I'll do it." "Marcus, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. Once you're in Somalia, you'll be completely on your own. If they discover who you really are, or if the extraction goes wrong, we might not be able to help you. I understand the risks. Do you? Because this isn't like a military operation where you have a team backing you up. This is you, alone, surrounded by people who will kill you without hesitation if they suspect you're not who you claim to be." Marcus appreciated Elena's concern, but he also knew she was asking him to do exactly the kind of work he had trained for his entire career. "Elena, how many people die if we don't identify and stop this terrorist leader?" "We don't know. Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. Then I have to try." Elena nodded slowly. "I was hoping you'd say that, but I was also hoping you wouldn't. Because you care about what happens to me. Because I've learned to trust your judgment and I don't want to lose that." Marcus realized Elena was admitting something important, that their relationship had become more than just professional. Under different circumstances, he might have explored what that meant. But right now he had to focus on the mission. "What do I need to know about maintaining our cover story?" he asked. "We act like two people who are attracted to each other but trying to take things slow. We meet for dinners, spend time together, but nothing too intense that would seem suspicious if it started recently. And when I'm in Somalia, I'll be here, coordinating with the intelligence team and monitoring communications. If you can get a message out, I'll receive it. What if something goes wrong and I don't come back?" Elena's expression became very serious. "Then I'll make sure the people responsible for that pay for it." Marcus believed her. Elena was someone who took betrayal and loss personally, which made her both a valuable ally and a dangerous enemy. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," Elena said. "Your final meeting with Dr. Ramirez is tomorrow night. You need to accept their offer, but you also need to be prepared for the possibility that they'll give you additional tests or requirements." "What kind of tests?" "They might want to verify your medical skills under pressure. They might ask you to prove your commitment by doing something illegal or unethical. They might even test whether you're really who you claim to be." "How do I prepare for tests I don't know are coming?" "By remembering that you're Marcus Thompson, military medic who's attracted to the money and excitement of working in dangerous places. You're not a spy. You're not working for intelligence services, and you've never heard of Elena Rodriguez except as someone you've been dating." Marcus nodded. "And if they ask me to do something I can't morally justify?" "Then you do it anyway, or you blow the entire operation." The bluntness of Elena's response reminded Marcus of exactly how high the stakes were. Tomorrow night he would commit to going to Somalia with a terrorist support network. After that, there would be no turning back. The final meeting with Dr. Ramirez took place in a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Marcus arrived to find not just the doctor and Colonel Santos, but 3 other men he hadn't met before. The change in venue and the additional personnel told him this was the real test. "Marcus," Dr. Ramirez said as he entered the warehouse, "thank you for coming. These are some of our senior staff members who wanted to meet you before we finalize your assignment." The 3 men studied Marcus with the intensity of people evaluating a potential threat. One of them, who introduced himself only as Ahmed, stepped forward. "We understand you're interested in our Somalia operation," Ahmed said. "But first we need to verify that you have the skills we require." Marcus had been expecting this.
"What kind of verification?"
"Practical demonstration," Colonel Santos replied. "We've arranged a simulation that will test your medical capabilities under pressure." They led Marcus to a section of the warehouse that had been set up to look like a field medical station. Basic equipment was laid out on tables, and what appeared to be a patient was lying on a stretcher, though Marcus couldn't tell if it was a mannequin or a real person from a distance. "The scenario is this," Dr. Ramirez explained. "You're in a hostile area where fighting has just ended. You have limited supplies and no backup. Your patient has multiple trauma injuries and needs immediate care to survive." As Marcus approached the stretcher, he realized the patient was real, a man in his 30s who appeared to be unconscious. He had what looked like genuine injuries, including a bleeding wound on his leg and signs of a head injury. "Is this man actually injured?" Marcus asked. "That's part of the test," Ahmed replied. "Determine what's wrong with him and provide appropriate treatment." Marcus began his examination, quickly determining that while the injuries were real, they weren't life-threatening. The leg wound was superficial but bleeding freely, and the head injury appeared to be a mild concussion. But something about the situation felt wrong. As he worked, Marcus noticed the 3 unknown men were watching him with more than professional interest. They weren't just evaluating his medical skills, they were studying his techniques, his decision-making process, and his reactions to stress. "The bleeding isn't stopping with direct pressure," Marcus announced. "I need to examine the wound more closely." But when he moved to clean the wound properly, he found something that made his blood run cold. Hidden beneath the superficial cut was a small device that looked like a tracking transmitter. Marcus realized he was being tested in more ways than one. They wanted to see not just whether he could treat injuries, but whether he would notice and respond to evidence of surveillance equipment. It was a test of his observational skills and his reaction to discovering that patients might be carrying monitoring devices. "There's something embedded in the wound," Marcus said carefully. "It looks like it might be shrapnel. Can you remove it safely?" Dr. Ramirez asked. Marcus understood this was the crucial moment. If he identified the device for what it really was, it would prove he had intelligence training. But if he pretended not to recognize it, he might fail their test of his competence. "It's not shrapnel," Marcus said finally. "It's electronic equipment, probably a tracking device." Ahmed smiled for the first time since Marcus had arrived. "Very good. Most people would have assumed it was debris from an explosion. Part of our work involves treating people who might be under surveillance by hostile forces," Colonel Santos explained. "We need medics who can recognize and handle surveillance equipment without compromising our operations." Marcus realized he had passed the first part of their test, but there was clearly more coming. The patient on the stretcher opened his eyes and sat up, apparently uninjured except for the superficial wounds. "Thank you," the man said to Marcus in accented English. "That was very professional." "Now for the second part of your evaluation," Ahmed announced. They led Marcus to another area of the warehouse where a different setup waited. This looked like an interrogation room with a single chair and bright lights focused on it. "Intelligence gathering is sometimes part of our work," Dr. Ramirez said. "We need to know that our team members can handle situations where medical care and information gathering overlap." Marcus felt a chill of understanding. They wanted to see if he would be willing to use his medical access to patients for intelligence purposes. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Nothing unethical," Dr. Ramirez assured him. "But sometimes our patients have information about security threats in areas where we're working. We need to know that our medics can gather that information when it's necessary for team safety." They brought in another man, this one clearly playing the role of a patient who might have intelligence value. Marcus was given a scenario where the patient might know about planned attacks against medical personnel. "Your job is to treat his injuries and, if possible, Learn what he knows about threats to our safety, Colonel Santos instructed. Marcus approached the scenario carefully. He treated the man's simulated injuries professionally, while engaging him in conversation about local conditions. It was a delicate balance between providing genuine medical care and subtly extracting information. But as the simulation progressed, Marcus realized they were testing something else entirely. They wanted to see if he would cross ethical lines in pursuit of intelligence. The scenario was designed to push him toward using medical procedures as leverage for information gathering. He's not cooperating, Ahmed observed. What would you do if his information could save the lives of your team members? Marcus understood this was the real test. They wanted to know if he would torture patients for information, using his medical knowledge to inflict pain without causing permanent damage. I would continue providing medical care, Marcus said firmly, and I would look for other ways to gather intelligence that don't compromise medical ethics. For a moment, the warehouse was completely silent. Marcus wondered if he had just failed their test by refusing to torture a patient. Then Dr. Ramirez smiled. Excellent answer. The last thing we need is a medic who thinks torture is acceptable medical practice. Ahmed nodded approvingly. We've had people fail this test by being too willing to hurt patients for information. That kind of behavior draws attention from human rights organizations. Marcus realized the test had been designed to eliminate candidates who were too eager to commit atrocities, not to find people who would torture patients. They wanted someone with medical ethics who could gather intelligence through legitimate conversation and observation. So I passed? Marcus asked. With flying colors, Colonel Santos replied. When can you be ready to deploy? I can arrange leave from my current position and be ready in 1 week. Perfect. Dr. Ramirez will contact you with travel arrangements and final briefing information. As Marcus prepared to leave the warehouse, Ahmed approached him privately. Marcus, I should mention that this operation is more important than we've told you. The person we're going to help has information that could save many lives. What kind of information? Intelligence about planned attacks against civilian targets. If we can get him to safety, we can prevent those attacks. Marcus nodded, understanding that Ahmed was giving him the final piece of the recruitment puzzle. They were framing the Somalia operation as counterterrorism work, making it easier for Marcus to justify participating. But Marcus also understood that everything Ahmed had just told him was probably a lie designed to make him feel better about working with terrorists. The person they were extracting was almost certainly a terrorist leader, not someone trying to prevent attacks. As he drove away from the warehouse, Marcus reflected on how thoroughly they had tested him. They had evaluated his medical skills, his observational abilities, his intelligence-gathering capabilities, and his ethical boundaries. Most importantly, they had tested whether he could be trusted with sensitive operations. He had passed all their tests, but he had also learned something crucial about their organization. They were professional, thorough, and very good at identifying potential security risks. Going undercover with them in Somalia would be more dangerous than he had initially realized. But Marcus also knew that Elena and her team now had detailed intelligence about the network's testing procedures, their security concerns, and their operational methods. Every piece of information he had gathered was another step toward identifying and stopping them. In 1 week, Marcus would board a plane to Nairobi, beginning a journey that would take him deep into terrorist-controlled territory in Somalia. He would be alone, surrounded by people who would kill him without hesitation if they discovered his real identity. But he would also be in position to gather intelligence that could prevent future terrorist attacks and possibly capture a major terrorist leader. As he considered the risks and potential rewards, Marcus realized he had never been more afraid or more determined to succeed. The next phase of the operation would test everything he had learned about survival, deception, and staying true to his principles while surrounded by people who had abandoned theirs. Marcus drove home to begin his final preparations, knowing that the next time he saw Elena might be the last time he saw anyone he cared about.